right, we got a little bit of a long one today, folks. I'm going to try to keep it as succinct as possible. I'm going to try to limit my time on each person, but today we've got our 25 most interesting free agents in MLB this offseason. I'm not necessarily going to make a prediction on every team that each person is going to go to because that's going to take a really long time. What we're going to talk about is what their projected salary is from Sport Track, and we're going to talk about their stats from this year and whether or not they deserve that salary or whether or not I think they're going to get there. And I just really wanted to discuss the most interesting free agents on the market. And let's get this out of the way right now. Let's talk about Juan Soto real quick. I'm not going to get into details. You guys all know who Juan Soto is. 26 years old, one of the best players in baseball. He's been one of the best players in baseball for like 5 years. He's young. He's got a bright future. They're predicting that he's getting $36.7 million a year. I think he's going to get a lot more than that. And I think it's going to come down to either the Yankees cough up the amount of money that he deserves or he goes to the Mets. That's my prediction on Juan Soto. I know I said I wasn't going to be predicting people's teams, but this one seems fairly obvious. I think the Dodgers are going to try to run up the price. They're not really going to get a whole lot out of it because they're not, frankly, interested in Soto as much as they're trying to pretend like they are. And I don't think that there's too many other teams that could really afford this type of price tag. You might have a chance that something weird happens, like the Atlanta Braves come in, swoop in, and give him the whole world. But I don't know. That's not really their MO. That's not really been their history. So that's my thoughts on Juan Soto. Obviously, I don't want to go into details about him because I'm going to end up doing that on a million other videos. I'm a Yankees fan. I love Juan Soto. Let's just move on to the next free agent. And the next one is Corbin Burnes. And this is a really interesting one. He's expected to get $30 million a year. Corbin Burnes, he's 30 years old. 3 years ago, he won the Cy Young Award. He didn't have a bad season, to be honest, this year. He started off really slow, but 194 innings pitched, 1.09 whip, 2.92 ERA. He was an all-star. He had a 3.5 WAR season. Corbin Burnes, though he wasn't a Cy Young Award vote getter this year, he's always kind of been a candidate since 2020. 2020, he was 6th. 2021, he won the award. 2022, 7th, and 2023, 8th. Definitely the best starting pitcher available. And I think he's definitely going to get that $30 million that we were talking about. I think it's probably going to be worth it. It's tough with pitchers because they theoretically could age poorly, but I think in recent history, these top tier pitchers end up aging pretty gracefully in today's MLB. There's a lot of good doctors working for baseball teams at this point. I think Corbin Burnes is going to be kind of worth it. What are they predicting on the amount of years? They're predicting 6 years. So at the end of his 6-year contract, probably going to age a little poorly, but if Corbin Burnes can help a contender reach the World Series, he's probably just worth it. Alex Bregman is our third free agent, and he's 30 years old. He's expected to be paid $30 million a year, and it looks like they're probably going to be looking for about 4 years. Bregman has been okay. He's been better than okay. Let me not say he's okay. 4 WAR season this year. He had 4.9 the year before, 4.6 the year before that. Bregman's a good player. He's obviously a top tier third baseman, but he's 30 years old. I could see him sort of deteriorating as time goes on, but 4 years for $30 million a year, if you're a team that really needs a third baseman, probably a solid pick. I don't think that he'll be going back to the Astros. I could honestly, oddly see him on the Yankees, depending on what happens with the Soto sweepstakes. A lot of free agency this year is going to depend on where Soto ends up landing. But Bregman did have kind of his worst season. He's 30. He has similar numbers to the past 2 years, but a worse OPS and obviously a worse WAR. But Bregman also won a Gold Glove, so he's bringing a lot of good defense. Our next free agent is Big Meat Pete Alonso. Pete Alonso had a 2.6 WAR season. He's been getting worse and worse since his rookie year. He's a powerhouse. He's a 4-time All-Star, former Rookie of the Year winner. He's never going to really be in the MVP contention. It's interesting. So does Pete Alonso get paid $29 million? Yeah, I think he's going to get paid what he's got here. I think 6 years, $29 million a year is probably exactly what Pete's going to get paid. He's 29 years old. He's kind of falling off since he was a rookie. I don't think that this contract is going to be worth it. What are these ads, bro? These ads just caught me off guard. What in the fuck? Anyway, so Pete is going to get paid that much. I don't think he's going to be worth it long term. I think the deterioration of his numbers is just probably going to continue, or at best, he kind of evens out. He's not going to get any better, but he hits bombs, so he will get overpaid. Blake Snell, next on the list, $26 million a year. 5 years is what they're predicting on Sport Track. I don't know. I don't know if Blake is going to get that. We just saw Blake get a 1-year contract after he got his Cy Young award. It seems like Scott Boras is just going to demand a ton of money, though I will say his numbers are very, very similar to last year. 5.6 hits per 9 compared to 5.8 when he won the Cy Young. 0.5 home runs per 9 compared to 0.8. Just kind of walking a lot of batters, but that's kind of been the story of his career. He actually had slightly better numbers in some cases than the previous year when he won the Cy Young. But the problem is Blake did not stay healthy. And the other problem is he had a terrible first half of the year. Everybody was making fun of Blake Snell, talking about how bad he is and how he's not going to get his contract and blah, blah, blah. And he should have taken a better deal and for less money. And I think that's true. I think that's fair. I think he's not going to get paid $26 million. I think he's going to be a little smarter this go around. I think that Blake might take a little less just to guarantee that he actually gets the long-term deal. You don't want to be back on free agency, especially since he got hurt at some point during the year. He knows how fragile this career could end up. I'm guessing that he takes 5 or 6 years at maybe like 22, 23. I could see Blake taking that kind of deal. Willy Adames is next, and that's going to be one of my favorite guys to talk about, because let me tell you something. Willy Adames had an incredible season this year. He had a nice little breakout campaign over the past couple years. He is one of the most underrated players in baseball. Very slept on because he was part of the Rays. He was part of the Brewers, teams that people don't generally give a lot of attention to. Willy Adames is very, 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 very good. Has put up 3+ WAR since 2021. In 2021, 4.2, 4.3 in 2022, 3, and then 3.1. If you look at just the WAR numbers, it looks like he's going backwards a little bit, and I guess you could kind of make a case for that, but honestly, Willy Adames had such a great season. Just a very, very solid player. 21 stolen bases, 32 home runs, 251 average, a 794 OPS, and he plays the toughest position. Willy Adames is definitely getting paid. Okay, that $25 million is going in his pocket. He's probably going to get a 6-7 year deal, and I think he deserves it. Teoscar Hernandez, another guy that I really like, another guy that I'm like very, very happy for. He had his best season of his career this year. He was an all-star, a 4.3 WAR, 840 OPS, 272 batting average, 33 home runs, 12 stolen bags. Teoscar's showing us that he's still got it. 31 years old. I think he probably does get paid in the 24 million range. I think the Dodgers are going to end up being the ones that get Teoscar again, though. I think they pretend that they're going after Soto and they re-sign Teoscar instead. Max Fried, another sneaky good pitcher. And I know what you're probably thinking. How is Max Fried sneaky? Everybody knows Max Fried is good. Do they? He gets a little bit slept on, okay? Max Fried is phenomenal. Max Fried, I think, in my opinion, I know this might be controversial. Max Fried, better value than Corbin Burnes, okay? Better value than Corbin Burnes. You're going to get him for probably $8 million per year less. You're going to get him for 6 years. That's what they're predicting. He's probably going to be looking for a 5-6 year deal for sure. He doesn't have a Cy Young award, but he has 2 top 5 Cy Young finishes. He's got 3 Gold Gloves. He's a multi-time All-Star. He even has a Silver Slugger, which doesn't really mean a whole lot anymore. Max Fried is seriously one of the most underrated pitchers in the league. And I think that he's going to get paid, and I think he's going to deserve it. And I think you're going to rather have Max Fried on your team than Corbin Burnes because of the difference in money and the not so different skill levels. Christian Walker is another fun one to talk about. And Christian Walker got paid about $11 million per year on his last contract. Now he's being predicted for $22 million a year, but he's 33 years old. He's 33 and a half years old. He's likely going to be seeking a 3 or 4 year contract. He's a great player. He provides a lot of power and he provides Gold Glove defense. Okay. He's won the last 3 Gold Gloves in the NL for first baseman. He hits for an 800 OPS usually. He averaged over the past 10 years, 793. Christian Walker is really interesting because he was kind of a late bloomer. You know, he really wasn't all that great until he hit his 30s. And that's when he started to hit his stride. My fear with Christian Walker, he might fall off a cliff. He still hasn't been as good as he was in 2022 when he had a 5 WAR, but he's still a very good hitter, and he's a Gold Glove winner. Yeah, it's at first base, and that means a little less. I do fear that he'll end up being one of those overpaid guys because he is older. He's going to start the next season at 34. It's going to be a 3-year contract, 4-year contract that he's seeking. The contract is not going to age well. And the next one up is Jack Flaherty. Predicted for $20 million a year. I think 3 years for a guy like Jack Flaherty is really nice. This guy is kind of having a bit of a renaissance on his career, I guess. Jack Flaherty came into the league red hot, 4th in Cy Young voting in 2019. He led the league in whip and hits per 9 that year. And then he just kind of slowly fell off. A lot of that due to injuries. Some of that due to the COVID season. Jack Flaherty has a really tough time staying healthy. So I'm not really sure that a team is willing to give him $20 million per year. That is my sort of fear with him. And that's going to be the fear of the teams in the league as well. But Jack Flaherty was pretty much lights out in the playoffs this year. He's only going to be 29 going into the next season. So that's really nice. I think Jack Flaherty is going to get paid, but I think it's not going to be as much as Sport Track maybe thinks. $20 million a year. I mean, who knows? Maybe a team just takes the risk because he did have a full season finally. And he showed off the skills that we knew that Jack Flaherty had. The next free agent I want to talk about is Nick Martinez. And this one's sneaky. Sport Track has him on track to make $18.7 million for a year and get a 2-year contract. This is fascinating. Nick Martinez came into the league and was pretty mediocre to bad. He was pretty bad, honestly, looking at those numbers. He spent 4 years in Japan, comes back at 31 years old in 2022, and all of a sudden he's pretty solid. You know, pretty good numbers for 2 years. And then this past year, at 33 years of age, 142 innings pitched, 1.026 whip, 8.1 hits per 9, 0.8 home runs per 9, 1.1 walks per 9, 7.3 strikeouts per 9. Incredible numbers for Nick Martinez. He's 33 years old. He put up a 4-WAR season at 33 years old, and he's never had that kind of success. This is my fear with Nick Martinez. He's going to be 34 going into next season. You give him 18 million like Sport Track says, that's potentially a lot of money wasted. Now, you're only doing it for 2 years, probably, according to them. And I think that's a little fair. I think that's kind of worth taking the risk, but I don't think that Nick Martinez is ever going to reach these numbers again. But if he reaches his 2022, 2023 numbers, that contract is worth it. You know, if he could do that for 2 more years, I think it's worth it, even a little worse than those numbers. It's kind of worth it for a contender to have sort of a 2-year rental on a guy that puts up pretty good numbers. Anthony Santander, switch hitting extraordinaire, cannot play defense, can barely move in the outfield. But my man Santander can hit, okay? A 3-WAR season. He had 58 walks. He had an 814 OPS, 44 home runs, one of the home run leaders this year, and a first-time All-Star. He's going to be 30 years old. They're expecting him to get paid about 17.7 per year for a 5-year deal. I think that Santander is going to end up getting that. I think at worst, he ends up becoming a designated hitter later on down the line. And I think that's a good trade-off. I think you're still willing to pay him. I think Santander is going to be a solid hitter for, probably all 5 of those years. Never going to hit for a high average, but always going to crank out bombs. And now we're talking about our first relief pitcher, and he is one of the best relievers in the game. Tanner Scott, $16.4 million annual for 4 years. That's the anticipated contract from Sports Track. Last year, he got paid $5.7, so a significant increase. But Tanner Scott, okay, let's just talk about this real quick. First time being an All-Star, 29 years old. He is a left-handed pitcher, and he put up 4.0 WAR as a reliever. Do you know how difficult that is? Do you know how talented you have to be in order to do that? And he's been pretty damn good for the past 2-3 years. He just continues to get better. This is sort of the age that you want your relievers to be, because they start to hit their prime right around 30, 31. And that's the perfect age for Tanner Scott. I think he's definitely getting paid that. 25 is a lot to get through. Maybe I should have done a little less when I first started this video. It's already super long. But next, we're talking about Tyler O'Neill. Tyler O'Neill was a big-time prospect coming up in the Cardinals organization. He didn't really see as much success as they would have liked. Back in 2021, he had an amazing season, 34 home runs and 912 OPS. He won his second Gold Glove at that point. He had won in 20 and 21, but then he just sort of fell off a cliff the next 2 years in St. Louis. A lot of that, I think, had to do with injuries, if I remember correctly. And he went to the Red Sox this year and really had a resurgence on his career. I like that a lot for Tyler O'Neill. I hope that this is going to continue to occur for him, because really interesting player with a ton of talent, but just kind of hit by the injury bug. Tyler O'Neill, $16 million. I think he probably gets a little less than that. They're also predicting a 3-year deal for him. I think 3 years is about what I would expect for Tyler O'Neill. Hopefully he really hit his prime here in Boston, and hopefully we could see a lot more of that coming from wherever he goes, because you got to love a story like that for Tyler O'Neill. That would be nice. Manaea, 32 years old. He'll be 33 next season. A very, very good pitcher. He was very good in Oakland. He was very solid as sort of a journeyman between the Padres, the Giants, and the Mets the past 3 years. I don't think that he's going anywhere. I think he is going to end up re-signing with the Mets. But Manaea is really, really solid. I think for $16 million, he's going to be one of those bargain deals that you end up getting in terms of starting pitching out there on the market right now. And you kind of love to see that for him, because I don't think he really gets the respect he deserves, because he was in Oakland for so long. The next two guys go hand in hand. They have for almost their entire careers. Max Scherzer, Justin Verlander. Scherzer's 41, Verlander's 42. Not great seasons. Neither one of them had an amazing season. Scherzer did have a much better season than Verlander this year. Verlander has really fallen off a cliff, you know, to a certain extent. But Scherzer and Verlander are fucking legends. They are legends of the baseball game. They are legends of MLB. And there's for sure somebody that's going to take a shot at them. I think those guys will have jobs in Major League Baseball until the day they decide to retire. Jurickson Profar is perhaps my favorite guy to talk about on this list, besides Juan Soto, of course, but we're gonna talk about him ad nauseum at some point. Jurickson Profar in 2011, 2010, those years, Jurickson Profar was a top prospect rated. I think he was the number one prospect at some point. He was definitely always in the top 10 prospects. Unfortunately, his career just didn't pan out. Profar showed like that he had talent, but never did he actually like put things together and become a star. But this year, 3.7 WAR, 839 OPS out of fucking nowhere. 24 home runs. Jurickson Profar just suddenly put it together, man. Just an incredible season from a guy that you thought was a washed prospect that wasn't going to make it and just sort of like be a journeyman forever. And now he had his greatest season ever. And now he might get paid $13 million a year. They're saying 2 years on Sport Track. I would not be surprised if somebody gives him 3-4 years at like maybe, you know, 11 million, something like that, a little bit of a discount. I'm super happy for Jurickson Profar. I love to see a guy kind of emerge. It took him a while. It took him a really long time. There was a lot of hype around him at the time. And now all of a sudden he's kind of a star, an all-star at the very least. Very happy for Jurickson Profar. We're reaching kind of the end of the line here. We got Goldschmidt. I have similar feelings to Max Scherzer and Verlander. Goldschmidt did not have a great season. He was 1.3 WAR, 716 OPS, his worst season yet. He only had 22 home runs, a 245 average, but literally 2022 Goldschmidt was the MVP. It's kind of hard to believe that Goldschmidt is not going to get offered some sort of contract because he is a legend. He is most likely a future Hall of Famer, and he definitely wants to keep playing to make sure that he is still in that category. Next up, Ha-Seong Kim. And Ha-Seong Kim, I'm personally a big fan. I like him a lot. He had probably his worst season since his rookie season at 2.6 WAR, 700 OPS. He's not the greatest hitter, but Ha-Seong Kim is an incredible defender. He won the Gold Glove last year, and I think he's got a lot more in the tank. He's only 28 years old. He'll be 29 going into next season. I think Ha-Seong Kim is going to be a solid investment. He's expected to get 4 years at about 12 million per. I think that's a very good deal for a pretty good, an above average third baseman in baseball. I like that a lot for him, and I hope that he gets it. Now we're in kind of tough territory, okay? Gleyber, my man Gleyber. It says that his market value is $7 million. It says that he's going to get 3 years at $7 million apiece. I don't think that's going to be the case for Gleyber. Gleyber is an immensely talented player who's a little bit lazy or has not lived up to his expectations at all. Coming into 2018, he had tremendously high expectations. This year, under 2 WAR, 709 OPS, 15 home runs. He just hasn't panned out as the player that everybody expected that he would turn into after his rookie year. I think that this is going to be a 1-year deal for Gleyber. I think that he doesn't want to take a 3-year deal at $7 million. I think he thinks he's worth more, and he's going to have to take a 1-year prove it deal. And I don't know what team that's going to be with, but I don't think it's going to be the Yankees. I wish Gleyber nothing but the best of luck. Jeff Hoffman, a fun one to talk about. 6.2 million, 2-year deal is what's expected. 31 years old at this moment, and he had his first All-Star appearance. He had his best season that he's ever had. He's had back-to-back really great years. He suddenly put it all together after having a very bad career prior to this. He was not a good pitcher. And now all of a sudden he's kind of a lights out closer for the Phillies, sort of. He shared closing duties with some of his teammates, but he had 12 strikeouts per 9, under a home run per 9, 6.5 hits per 9, and 2.2 walks per 9. It seems that Jeff Hoffman's control is getting better. I think he definitely gets the $6 million a year for 2 years, and I think that a team is going to be very happy with him as a bullpen arm. Kirby Yates is also a phenomenal story. Kirby Yates was a fantastic reliever, a fantastic closer, one of the best in the league for a couple years. You know, he had a couple really good years in San Diego. He was okay in Tampa Bay. He was bad on the Yankees. But then all of a sudden, injuries really derailed him. Kirby Yates got injured in 2020, didn't play in 2021, and then only pitched 9 games in 2022. It was clear that his career was over at that point. He was 35 years old. And then all of a sudden he came back last year and put up pretty good numbers with Atlanta. And then he comes back this year and puts up absolutely phenomenal numbers with the Texas Rangers. 61 innings pitched, 1.17 ERA, 0.82 whip, 12 strikeouts per 9, 3 hits per 9. And he does walk people a little more than you expect, but he was an all-star this year, okay? Kirby Yates, at 37 years old, was an all-star and put up a 3.3 WAR season. Immensely talented pitcher. He's going to be 37 going into the next season. And I think giving him a 1-year deal for $6 million is nice. Josh Bell, $5.2 million. I only put Josh Bell in here because I personally really like Josh Bell. He had himself a terrible season. Negative WAR, only batted .249, 725 OPS. He's terrible defensively, 19 home runs. I think Josh Bell has a lot of talent. He's a former All-Star, former Silver Slugger. I think that he deserves some sort of chance to prove that he could do things and to prove that he's still got something in the tank. I really hope he turns it around. He's a switch hitter. He's a fun player to watch, but unfortunately, he did have a really bad year. 32 years old going into next season. I think Josh Bell deserves a second chance. And the last guy we want to talk about is Patrick Corbin, former World Series champion, an absolute beast of a pitcher, definitely deserves more than $6 million. How could you only give him $6 million? I'm just kidding. Patrick Corbin, obviously not going to get another contract. He had a terrible last couple years. Really, really tough to see, but let's not forget, okay? Everybody likes to focus on the negative. Let's not forget, Patrick Corbin was a big time piece of the Nationals winning the World Series that year. I think that every Nationals fan would say that he was worth the contract, even though he was getting paid basically $23 million a year for 6 or 7 years or whatever it was. Pretty good career, and he made a lot of money, so good for him. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you like this kind of content. You know, I'm trying to put out videos basically every day, probably like 6 times a week. And we're trying to reach 500 subscribers by the end of the year. If you enjoyed this, then please subscribe. It would help out a lot. Thank you so much for watching and have yourself a wonderful rest of your day.